President Uhuru Kenyatta is probably one of the most outgoing presidents in Africa. I'm saying this because I've studied the lifestyle of most of African presidents, and I've concluded that most of them always create a barrier between them and the citizens. And that's not the case with President Uhuru Kenyatta. As a matter of fact, the only barrier existing between Uhuru Kenyatta and ordinary Kenyans is basically the presidency. Because as the president of the Republic of Kenya, there are certain things he can do and there are certain things he cannot do. But despite all those barriers, Uhuru Kenyatta is always seen mingling with ordinary Kenyans. Just the other day, we saw President Uhuru Kenyatta going for that UB40 concert in Nairobi Carnival. And Uhuru was free. He was just enjoying himself, dancing with the ordinary people down there, not bothering with the high table. In fact, I'm told that when he arrived, a seat had already been preserved for him or reserved for him. But he chose to go down and dance with ordinary Kenyans. That's the Uhuru Kenyatta. That's Uhuru Kenyatta for you. And today, Uhuru Kenyatta was also spotted in Nairobi, driving himself. I don't want to assume that he was alone. Probably there was someone following, there was another vehicle following him from the back. But in his vehicle, his limousine, Uhuru Kenyatta was alone. And he was just driving, meditating. From State House, for those who know Nairobi, Uhuru Kenyatta went through up to Parliament Road. He went there, just monitored how Kenyans, he drove, by the way, and monitored how Kenyans were lining up to view the remains of the former president, Daniel Toroitich arap Moi. And from there, he drove all the way to Nyayo Stadium to check for himself personally on the progress of the preparation for the big event, which will happen, is it on Tuesday? And that's Uhuru Kenyatta. And it was not the first time Uhuru Kenyatta was driving himself in the streets of Nairobi. Who are killing Kenyans in Nairobi. How could that even happen? How can a Chinese board a plane from China all the way to Kenya, which is acceptable, which is okay, I don't have a problem with that, arrive in the country, open a restaurant, whether he was just an employee there. Then once he opens a business, employs Kenyans in that business, a Kenyan comes late, reports late by a few minutes, because you know the traffic in this country you can't predict. Moi had just died, there was some traffic mess. So the guy reports late. And you know what? The Chinese flogs this man in his own country. After flogging him or after caning him, then he sends him home. How can that happen? And I'm glad that the DCI, I really have a lot of respect, by the way, in this country, for one institution called the DCI. Because after many years, once Kinoti took over, a lot of things are happening in that DCI. There are good things. At least now you can talk of good things from DCI. Today, DCI raided the premise. Let me just read for you what they are saying. Following reports of an incident doing rounds in sections of the press depicting a man of Asian descent assaulting a male employee said to be working at a hotel, this morning detectives from Kilimani raided Ches Woi restaurant in Kileleshwa in pursuit of this matter. So these Chinese have a Chinese restaurant in Kileleshwa, and they are saying they managed to arrest the perpetrator, Wan Deng Hailan, a Chinese national who works at the hotel as a chef but does not have a work permit. So there's a Chinese who came all the way from China, came to Kenya, got employed as a chef without a work permit. And this guy still had the guts of caning a Kenyan. The best he could have done, in my view, was to send this Kenyan home. But sadly, this Kenyan, when he was being interviewed, he narrated clearly that the problem they're facing is that as a Kenyan, hakuna kazi in this country. There are no jobs in Kenya. So once he found that job, he always tried to protect the job. And it was not the first time he was being caned. And that it's not the only one who is being caned in that hotel. Most of them are being caned for mistakes, certain mistakes. And he's been persevering because he doesn't have jobs. And that's why I'm relating Uhuru Kenyatta driving himself and dancing UB40 to this. Is Uhuru Kenyatta aware that in this country we have Chinese caning Kenyans in their own country? Is Uhuru Kenyatta aware that in this country we have Chinese working as chefs but without work permit? I'm trying to imagine, assuming this was a Kenyan operating a restaurant in China, and this Kenya has employed Chinese in that hotel or restaurant in China. He's the boss. But then he goes ahead and flogs a Chinese in China. Can it happen? It can only happen in this country because it's even reported that there are several cases of this particular guy having been reported to police severally. But what normally happens is that this guy bribes the police. So it means we are in a country where even foreigners arrive and they know that in this country the only thing which works is a bribe. Can you bribe a Chinese police? If you try that there, you will not come back. If you are a Kenya, you have a restaurant down there, you employ a Chinese, the Chinese makes a mistake, you flog the Chinese, then you try to bribe the police. You will not even be taken to Kenya. You will go straight to jail. But in Kenya, that's the order of the day. But there were 4 people. There were 3 people, I think. And the DCI is continuing. Also arrested were other chefs, Chang Yueping and Kue Kwing, who hold expired visas. Chang hold a work permit, but his compatriots doesn't. So of all these, he has an expired visa, but he has a work permit. If you have a work permit in Kenya, you can work. That's okay. I don't have any slightest problem with that. Because even Kenyans, I'm sure there are Kenyans in China who are working either as expatriates or just doing manual jobs. But you must have the work permit. But their visas are expired. How can you have a visa which is expired? And you don't even think of renewing. And you are a foreigner. How? I mean. But then there was this lady also. They are saying, Louis Ling, a cashier at the hotel holding a visa, but without a work permit, also arrested. So their cashier is also a Chinese. You know, cashier ni ule unapewa pesa ukimaliza kukula, after eating something for 200 bob, you give. So they don't even trust Kenyans with their own money. So I think the government must raid these Chinese. Because apart from Chinese causing havoc in this country this way, they are also giving birth right, left, and center to our women. And then they abandon them. If you follow where Chinese are constructing roads, they are good in that. And they are very fast and efficient. But there are tails along these roads. There are Chinese women. In fact, as a matter of fact, in the next few years, we are going to have so many Chinese kids, a tribe called Chinese in this country, which is not bad. But they're not taking responsibility for these kids. They abandon them because our girls are not even able. Our girls are not even able to differentiate between Ching and Chong. You see, you are a girl, you are going with a Chinese, you can't even differentiate in between this and this. So there's even a possibility of all these Chinese going with one girl without the girl knowing. There are cases of dogs disappearing along those ways. But the government is doing that. We have a very irresponsible government in this country. As long as you have money, as long as you can bribe your way. Otherwise, if we had a system which is working, we wouldn't be having a Chinese with an expired visa working in a restaurant in this country. Because with a system, the country should be knowing that in this country we have 2,000 Chinese. And out of these 2,000 Chinese, 5 are working in Kisumu, 20 in Mombasa, 30 maybe Kisii, zingine pale Kirinyaga, some Elgeyo Marakwet on a road. So that anytime any visa expires, then they are alerted. And then they are asked why they can't renew. Anytime a work permit has issues. But you know, if you go to where the renewal is happening, there are always cartels sitting there. In fact, they'll meet you 50 meters away from the office. You'll just find neatly dressed men, yeah? And they'll tell you, let a person kusaidia. And they'll really help you. So you bribe, you get your thing without even following the due process. So I'm very disappointed, Kenyan, with this incident of these Chinese. I don't know whether they should be deported or whether they should be asked to adhere to the law. And how many cases are like that? Look, we are talking of 4 Chinese found in a restaurant. 2 of them don't have visa. Expired. 2 of them don't have work permit. So basically, out of the 4 Chinese working in that restaurant, all of them are working illegally. So can we easily conclude, because it's statistics, that's how this Chinese work in this country. I don't know what you think. And someone was asking me, if you are left in a room with that Chinese, what can you do to him? And I was telling him, there's nothing really you can do. Because number one, Chinese are foreigners, so you wouldn't want to fight a foreigner. Apart from that, number 2 is that this Chinese might be related to Bruce Lee. And you remember when you were young and Bruce Lee was fighting, so you feared Cheng Chong kick. So therefore, because he's related to Bruce Lee, or there's that notion that Chinese are very lethal, they can beat you up, so you'll just keep quiet. In Luo would say, Thuol Othoeko. For those who understand that, yani nyoka imekufa kwa ile calabash, so there's nothing you can do. You know, we used to have those calabash, they're still there, where you keep those milk. You can call it mursik. So nyoka ikiingia hapo ndani, what do you do with that calabash? So unaivunja. Ukivunja, maziwa yako ina. Yeah. So I don't know, but in my view, I think to be honest and to be serious, this government must do something about this, because our young boys are committing suicides daily. Why do you think that's happening? Depression. And what is causing that? Unemployment. And why do we have unemployment? Because of the problems like corruption, allowing Chinese to take off jobs which Kenyans can do, things like those. Thank you guys, and may you have a good day.